Good evening. I'd like to call this evening's meeting, September 17th, 2024, of the Plan Commission to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Dr. John Price, Scott Shipley,
Here.
Devin Stetler,
Here.
Brianne Schneckenberger, here. Chad Gooding, Katie McClear,
Here.
Brian Hurley.
Yeah.
Thank you. Before we begin, I'd like to advise everyone that all testimony is being recorded. I'd like to let everybody know that all persons speaking will be asked to give their name for the record and to spell their last name so that the minutes are accurate. Please turn off all cell phones. The order of those speaking would be that the petitioner would have the first 10 minutes in which to make his or her presentation, followed by 10 minutes for all remonstrators to speak, 5 minutes for any government officials who wish to address the issues, and then 5 minutes for rebuttal by the petitioner. Our attorney will give each side a 2-minute and 1-minute warning as time is expiring. We ask that all persons conduct themselves in a civil manner and reserve the right to request those who are disruptive to leave. With that, we'll call the first order of business tonight. Ryan, are there any agenda considerations?
We have none.
Good. Next item on the agenda is approval of our minutes from our last meeting, which was in July.
I'll make a motion to approve the July minutes.
There is a motion of approval of our July minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Ryan, any old business tonight?
None.
None? I just got out of my wrong button. Sorry. And I can't see where I'm at. Yeah, thank you. New business. Looks like we have one item, PC-24-005, Hartman Capital's request to amend the Sycamore Drive PUD located along the south side of County Road 650 North.
Absolutely, yeah. So this project is located on Southside 650, as you just said, kind of immediately east of Sagebrook, about a half a mile west of County Road 600 West. This PUD, just to kind of give you a kind of a refresher, it's about 68 acres, maximum of 153 lots. This is a build-to-rent product. And when the PUD originally went through, we as in the staff and petitioner didn't really anticipate the need for fences. As we've looked more at that, petitioner will speak to this, there is some demand for fences on these lots. And so that is really the genesis of this amendment tonight, is simply to allow fences on the residential lots within the whole project. Don't know which lots would necessarily have those fences, but the fences would, if approved, meet the requirements as the petitioner has presented them, and of course then follow all of our locational requirements. We'll also kind of touch base on some native grasses tonight as well, as we've had some discussion on that as well. But those two items are the only things that petitioner is bringing forward for discussion or for amendment into the PUD. The remainder of the PUD would stay as is. With that said, I will, well, let me do the process real quick, sorry. This is our introduction by staff. The next up will be the petitioner's presentation, followed by the public hearing, any final questions from the board, any final discussion from staff. And then tonight this is eligible for action by the Plan Commission. Options are favorable, unfavorable, no recommendation, or to continue. With that said, I will welcome the petitioner up, Steve Kunkel with Hartman Capital, to make a presentation.
Good evening. Scott Kunkel, Kunkel with Hartman Capital. Ryan did a good job just outlining what it is that we're approaching with you this evening. When we put the original plan development together in cooperation with staff, a year and a half ago now-ish, the need for fences wasn't really on our radar screen at all. But what we've discovered since that period of time, and I think it has been borne out in some of the other developments that are now coming online that have a similar housing style as well, is there's some demand amongst individuals for whom this is a good fit to have the option to have fencing in the backyards. Generally, it's going to be driven by one or two things: either they have a pet, or they have small children, and they just want to have the assurance and the security that's associated with that fence you know how it is with kids. You know, even if you're keeping an eye on them, you just they move fast, and they just want to have that assurance. It's not necessarily our expectation or intent that every home will end up with a fence, but we want to offer that option to residents. We would probably do an initial batch of homes, maybe 20 to 25 of them, to have that sort of available within the community for folks that need it, but then would also be able to add those fences over the period of time as demand warrants with the different residents that come along. The intent is to use a metal fence, a black metal fence that's similar in style to the fence that's being used on the dog park area right now. It's 4 feet high. The picture that's on the screen right now is a good representation of that fence style. I think it's used, or fences like that are used pretty similarly in some of the other communities that are right adjacent to our site. So it doesn't obstruct lines of sight or anything of that nature. The fences would be limited to the backyards. They wouldn't come out to the front yards. And then, as Ryan mentioned, we'd be compliant with the town's requirements as it relates to utility easements, stormwater easements, things of that nature. So what we're looking for tonight is the amendment to the plan development that would give us that flexibility to add those fences on an intermittent basis as need be.
Is there another item on, you said grasses?
Oh,
or
yeah, I
something?
could speak to that briefly. Yeah, one or several of our neighbors to the south of us made a request to us if we could take the natural prairie-scape grasses that are planted between the mounds, the berms that we have on the south side, and replace those with the grass type that we have on the berms themselves. It's a turf grass that's used on golf courses, things of that nature. It's designed to grow about 8 inches tall. It looks more like normal grass, but doesn't require the mowing, particularly on berms. That's a little difficult. We're fine with that. We can do that this fall. At the beginning of this process, we had expressed to our neighbors that we wanted to be good neighbors as well. So it's something that we can do, and if it makes it a more desirable kind of a installation from their perspective, we're fine with it. So that would be something we would intend to do this fall. Basically, it's I don't know how wide the strip is, maybe 50, 60 feet wide, something like that. But we remove the prairie grasses that are there and install that turf grass instead.
Any other questions from the board?
Can I ask one question about who maintains the fences that are going to be installed?
We do, yeah. So part of this development model is that the developer, us, we maintain the entire physical infrastructure of the development. So you get a consistent professional maintenance of the entire project to a high level all the time. So you're not relying on maybe differing priorities or different standards that different occupants might have. So if a piece of fence is damaged or something like that happens, we're responsible for replacing it.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? This is a public hearing item. At this point, I'd like to kind of open it up to the public. If there's anybody here from the public that wishes to make a comment or say something on this matter, please come forward. Did anybody wish to make a comment or address this matter before the board? Let the record state that nobody expressed an interest to come before the board. Ryan, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I don't think so. Well, yeah, I guess I do. I don't think so, then I'm going to go talk. So I just, staff has no concerns with the fencing. I think I would just reiterate really what Scott said is, yes, we've dealt with some other build-to-rent projects, namely the one in Jacoby Farms that's being proposed or been approved by LMS. That was a really big focal point for them, and really something that they've said was really a necessity for their project was these are rentals, they are a higher rent rate, and one of those reasons is because people really need that outdoor space, whether it's for kids or pets. So we certainly understand the demands for this and why it makes sense to do it. Appreciate the fact that they're only proposing the black metal. I think that's great, and that will keep it nice and uniform looking, and I think long lasting. It'll look well for a long period of time. And then the grasses we're also supportive of. This is something that came up a little bit more recently. I can say I've met with a couple of the folks in, I think it's called Country Lane Estates, that's to the south, with some concerns of the native grasses. You know, we explained at the time that those were installed correctly, and it will take time for those grasses to mature and thicken to choke out the weeds that are in those. But I do think petitioner agreeing that they would change this more turf grass style. I think that would be a welcomed change in those residents' eyes, because they were worried about the weeds and things sort of blowing and getting into their yards. And so I think really we have kind of a win-win here. We took advantage of the fence amendment to work in some grass stuff. We don't have the grass language drafted. We wanted to get, you know, Plan Commission's input first, but we would ask for any motion tonight, any favorable recommendation tonight, to just include a note that staff will work with the petitioner to include some language regarding that grass change.
Any other questions from the board? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion for a favorable recommendation for PC 24005, contingent upon the fact that the petitioner and staff will work together to work on grass language.
Brianne has made a motion of a favorable recommendation. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
There is a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brian,
Thank you.
new business from the floor.
Yeah, so I will not make us stay too much longer since we're going to have a nice short meeting tonight. There we go. I did want to provide a quick update on the comprehensive plan and where we're at. So as everyone knows, we started that process here. Hopefully you know that we have been pushing out a lot of things on social media and through our Friday email blast regarding it. We are in what we call the discovery phase of the comprehensive plan. We do have a website, planmccordsville.com, and we also have a survey posted to that website. I would love for everyone to take out your phones right now and scan that QR code. So when you get home tonight, you can take the survey. You can't forget, because it'll be open on your Safari browser or Android, whatever they have. Again, discovery, this is kind of where we're going out. We're engaging people. We're asking people to come to us. We're going to them. We're trying to get input and feedback. So we had our first public engagement event at Party in the Park a few Saturdays ago. We'll have our second public engagement event this coming up here in October 21st at the Police Department Open House. That's from 4 to 6 p.m. that day. And I also want to kind of take this time to extend an invite to the Plan Commission to attend that open house. If you have a desire to see the inner workings of a police station before it becomes secured, this is your one and only opportunity to do so. After this event, the police station will become an active police station, will be a secured facility that the public will not be allowed to enter into. So please come out, check it out. We'll do some engagement for the comp plan, but also come see a really, really beautiful police station that's been built. Next up, we had our first steering committee meeting last 2 Mondays ago. Devin is our Plan Commission representative on that steering committee. And we'll continue to meet as a steering committee a few more times over the course of the next 4 to 6 months to kind of help us guide this plan. And then this week is Community Planning Week. We started this week with 8 different focus group meetings. Between yesterday and today, we've held all those. We had our first public workshop last night. Thanks to Brian and Katie for attending that meeting. We'll have one more public workshop this coming Thursday night here in this room at 6:30 p.m. Everyone's welcome to attend it. It will be a different presentation, a different agenda. Essentially what's going to happen here is REA, our consultant, is taking all of the focus group feedback, the first public workshop feedback from Party in the Park. They've had drop-in hours this week that you can come in and drop in and see them and talk with them. They're taking all that stuff, that info and feedback, they're kind of compiling it and organizing it, and they will produce a draft vision statement and draft goals or policy direction for the plan. That will get presented to the steering committee Thursday afternoon, and then at that second public workshop Thursday evening. So that Thursday evening will be really about kind of reduxing what we've done to this point and kind of what that's telling us. And hopefully it gives us a pretty good vision for how we start to transition into the visioning phase of the plan, which is more about the analysis and kind of what do we want to be when we grow up. Then we'll move on to framework, which is really more about the drafting of the document. And then at some point, once you get past that, action is essentially going through the public approval process. That process does include the plan commission. So your role here formally, in addition to just providing input as we go through this process, is to provide a recommendation on the comprehensive plan that will go ultimately to the town council for approval. And then, of course, post-adoption, better known as implementation. We'll talk about that at some point in time as well. Process is probably 4 to 6 months of time. So could be done end of year, could be a few months into the new year. We'll get this adopted, we think. We're really excited about it, and we just want to continue to kind of promote people engaging with this. So if you talk to folks in your neighborhood or at events, please tell them about it. Please push them to the website. planmccordsville.com is really easy to remember. And we look forward to getting everybody's input. Any questions on the comp plan? I'll continue, maybe not monthly, but I'll continue to give updates as we go through this process, leading up to eventually you guys receiving the draft of the plan for action. And then just one last comment. I didn't have this on the agenda, but at Plan Commission last month, we talked a lot about signage, specifically window signage, and the zoning ordinance includes some really specific language about window coverage and size of letters that can be used on windows, and the BZA has asked staff to look at potentially a zoning amendment and drafting some language that might change that language and make it a little less restrictive than it is today. The BZA doesn't have to have a formal process in that, but they've directed us to look at that. Staff will be looking at that, and then we will bring that eventually to the Plan Commission for your review and recommendation. So just be aware that we're working on that. We'll run it past the BZA first as a courtesy because it is something that they've requested, but ultimately it comes to this board for recommendation.
What's driving the issue?
We've had, a property owner in town, a business owner who had some concerns with the window signage limitations. And we've also found that there are, a window signage does not require a permit. Essentially, you can just put your window signage up as long as it complies with the ordinance. You never hear from us. We never reach out to you. What we found is that there's a lot of businesses in town that are not complying with the requirement. And so the BZA felt like it was probably a bit restrictive. It didn't want to necessarily allow total window coverage, right? Town has a lot of standards that are driven to have give buildings aesthetics and character and community feel. And we don't necessarily want to clutter that up completely with signage, but there's a balance with signage, right? So allowing a little bit more window signage seemed to be the direction they'd like us to go. So staff's going to kind of take a crack at some new standards for it. We'll look and see what other communities around us are doing and try to draft up either an option or multiple options. We'll run that past the BZA to see if we're on kind of the right track for what they were hoping we were going for. And then we'll take that feedback and bring it to the Plan Commission for your action. So I'm hoping we're doing that in October. That our goal is to present it to them on October 2nd. And if all goes well, we'll present it to you at your meeting, which I think is October 15th. And then if that goes well, or we get clear direction that's not going well, we'll adjust. So. That is it.
No further announcements
Don't think so.
or updates?
Unless I'm forgetting about something. I don't think so.
If there's nothing else for us to discuss, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Awesome.